Hi everyone, my name is Shakespeare Mudombi. I work as a sustainable growth economist at the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies TIPS. TIPS is an independent non-profit economic research institution based in Pretoria, South Africa. It supports economic policy development with a strong emphasis on industrial policy. We do a lot of cross-cutting research, including agriculture. And in the agriculture sector, we focus on various individual value chains. And we have done work looking at the sugar value chain, dairy value chain, medicinal cannabis, abalone, soybean, poultry and eggs, wine, grapes, and also the forestry value chain. We have also done work on understanding farming 4.0 and its potential. And also we have looked at the agro-processing machinery value chain, looking at the regional perspective. The objective of this presentation is to show or to give the potential for the agricultural sector in bringing about more inclusive, sustainable economic benefits. And in this presentation, it will be mostly informed by two streams of research work that we have undertaken as TIPS. Firstly, this is the sector job resilience plans. This is current research, and we are about to conclude that work. The other work is the work that we concluded in 2019, which focused on small business development in the climate change adaptation space. So I will start with the sector job resilience plan. This is just to give you an overview of some of the work that we do, but also highlighting the extent of the vulnerability of the impacts to impacts of climate change. In terms of sector job resilience plans, this has been motivated by the National Climate Change Response White Paper, which highlights the need to develop a sector job resilience plans. And the aim is to protect vulnerable groups. And these vulnerable groups, they might be affected in various ways. These include losing jobs, losing sources of income and livelihoods, and also there might be transition risks that might come into play. So it's important to understand who is going to be affected and in what ways. In this stream of research, we looked at 5 value chains, that is the coal value chain, metals value chain, petroleum-based transport, tourism, and agriculture. And I will focus on the agricultural value chain. From the agricultural value chain, it's just to highlight that there are direct impacts and also there are policy-related impacts, and this relates to transition risks as measures are put into place as people transition towards maybe the new normal. So in terms of direct impacts, these would affect the actual production, for example, yields, and so on, the biophysical context of the crops and livestock. But in terms of policy-related impact, this would relate to things like water use licenses. Those changes might affect the livelihoods of people, maybe people downstream the river and so on. So these are some of the impacts that we try to unpack. Then there are issues that might relate to freight and packaging and also emissions, for example, from cattle. It's a big issue in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Then also another critical aspect of the research was to understand who is vulnerable and to what extent are they being affected or will they be affected. And some of the key groups that we identified as vulnerable groups that need strong prioritization are the farm workers, emerging farmers, and also small businesses that are dependent on the agro-industrial value chain. And also households that have been dependent on the agricultural value chain, particularly by providing labor. As you know, in South Africa, there has been those former homelands, and these have been historically providing labor to many farming regions. So those such groups need to get higher priority in terms of finding ways to reduce the likely impacts. Then the other stream of work that I need to highlight is the small business development, the climate change adaptation space. And from this stream is just to show some of the opportunities and what's already happening on the space. And because one thing that we have to take into consideration is that as the as we will sort of experience the impact of climate change, but there will be also be opportunities in addressing those adaptation needs. There will be business opportunities, but the critical or key issue in this stream of work was trying to understand how are small businesses going to be able to capture those opportunities also, as we want to ensure that responses are inclusive, and it's important to take into consideration the important role that small businesses play, particularly in the livelihoods of many people. So in this research, we focus on three categories or three sector categories. That is the energy market, water and sanitation market, and the agricultural and the agro-processing market. And in this presentation, I will focus mostly on the agricultural market. To just highlight that in the responses towards climate change, there are various strategies that can be adopted. These include climate smart agriculture, including organic farming, agroecology, and conservation agriculture. These are some of the opportunities that can be explored also. And also there are other streams that can be explored, particularly in providing technological solutions to address emerging challenges. But in these efforts to transition, one critical aspect is to say what are the opportunities or because without the market also for the products that will be produced, it will be a challenge. And so, for example, for options like organic farming, if the market is limited, then it will be a challenge for farming operations to be viable. So it's good to understand the market opportunities for the farmers, and to just highlight that, for example, in South Africa, organic farming only accounts for about 0.01%. But when we look at the global level, it's about 1.2%. So there is that gap that South Africa lags behind in terms of promoting things like organic agriculture and so forth. But maybe the central aspect will be the limited maybe market. So it's some of those things that would need further investigation to understand why there is limited transition towards others. So as part of this research, we took a case study approach so that we could understand the journeys that entrepreneurs and innovators in the adaptation space are experiencing. And here I will present two case studies. The first case study focuses on sustainable farming and food security while preserving the planet. This is by Wolfgang von Lipper, a young South African agricultural scientist. The aim of Wolfgang is to promote sustainable farming practice at a wider scale. And this is he's doing this through his company, the My Smart Farm. So My Smart Farm focuses on providing a complete package consisting of hardware, software, and technical expertise needed by farmers to make their operations more sustainable. So it seeks to help farmers to be more proactive rather than reactive. So what they have done is to develop an app that helps farmers to assess the health of their farms through real-time feedback from sensors of their farms. So these sensors will be strategically positioned on the farm so that they can collect data with climate variables, soil moisture, water availability, and also issues to do with input application, maybe diesel usage and usage of various chemicals or inputs. So the system provides intervention that are tailored to specific needs of different crops and also farm sections. And this helps the farmer to know exactly where and how, what is needed in a particular section of the farm, maybe with regards to irrigation, if there is water stress, where there is need to add more fertilizer, or where there are challenges with pests or diseases. So this is more like embracing farming 4.0. Then the other case study that I'm just highlighting is the one by two young engineers, that is Mohale Malek and Tumelo Pule. These seek to use hydroponics to enhance food security. These two young engineers sort of came together when they were studying at the University of Johannesburg, whereby they conceptualized the idea to start the AB farms. And AB farms is a growing agri-tech business which sort of seek to develop hydroponic farming technology and also does the actual hydroponic farming. It's based in Western area, Agri-Park in Gauteng. So within the Agri-Park also they get some assistance, particularly maybe access to finance, farming land, and getting discounted rents. So to highlight their story is their story is centered on the hydroponic system. When they moved into the Agri-Park, there was a hydroponic system that was already installed, but the challenge with this system is that they couldn't meet their needs. And from the research that we're doing, the interviews that we did with these young entrepreneurs, was that they highlighted that the hydroponic designs from international suppliers tend to be high-tech and also highly costly. And they are not suited for the local context. And one key aspect relates, for example, to some of the systems require continuous supply of electricity for them to function. But what they did, these guys, was to sort of develop their own vertical bucket system that works even with in the context of load shedding. So that even without the supply of electricity, their plants can still get the required nutrients, can still get the required water. So this is what they did in terms of trying to see developing a technology that is suited to the local context, particularly, for example, the issue of load shedding, because the load shedding is a big issue in the country. So through AB farms, these young entrepreneurs seek to provide training to farmers on hydroponic techniques, and also to explore the option of sort of rolling out a franchise with a complete support package to the farmers. So these are some of the things that we've been undertaking in trying to understand the opportunities within the adaptation space can be harnessed, and that no one is left behind, particularly small businesses, because as we know, these guys are highly innovative. They are coming up with novel solutions, but without the take-up of those solutions, those efforts will go in vain. So it is important that we understand such critical issues and also try to help inform the policy to say what type of support is needed for young entrepreneurs or young innovators in the adaptation space. How can they sort of be leveraged to provide solutions that are needed for sustainable agricultural development? So as a way forward, or in closing, it's important that we leave no one behind, and the general inequality, for example, in South Africa, is very high and is also mirrored in the agricultural sector, and there is lack of access to resources, and the one critical resource is the access to land. And it is important that the strategies that are devised also take into consideration in terms of how can the marginalized or the vulnerable groups be empowered so that they are able to to respond appropriately to impacts of climate change. So in terms of the enabling solutions towards sustainable agricultural development, one key aspect is to highlight that there is progress that is happening. However, it's happening at a slower pace, and these are isolated cases. But for us, what we need is a system-wide transformation. So there is need actually for greater effort, particularly from the government and other stakeholders, to ramp up support towards supporting the transition towards the green economy. Particularly also is to support the small businesses and young innovators with the necessary support that they need, particularly with in the green economy spaces, the need for dedicated green economy funding and also dedicated green economy incubation programs. Because one key aspect is that the business as usual no longer applies. So it needs these young innovators to be trained in terms of understanding the market, in terms of understanding how to sort of leverage in terms of the available support and how to ensure that their innovations speak to the needs of the people. And it is in this way that we can continuously enhance the transition towards sustainable growth and sustainable development. This is some of the insights that we have been doing at the trade industrial policy strategies and